Brought to you by the New Jersey Education Association.
And joining us now to talk about the Transportation Trust Fund, public pensions, school aid, and other key issues affecting the state of New Jersey is Senate Majority Leader, Senator Loretta Weinberg. Senator, welcome.
Welcome,
Thank you.
So I gave a litany of issues, and there are many others, but I want to know, which issue do you think is the most important at this?
Well, I think right now, at this moment, it's solving the Transportation Trust Fund. Obviously, it affects our infrastructure, it affects the jobs of thousands of people, and we have to get beyond this and come up with an answer.
So what's the answer? I mean, you thought you had an answer, right, this time around?
Yeah, you know,
what happened?
We had an agreement with the Assembly to pass a Transportation Trust Fund solution, which raised the gas tax
23 cents a gallon.
By 23 cents, lowered other taxes on the working poor, the estate tax on veterans, a whole litany of reductions to kind of offset the increase for really middle class and lower middle class folks. The governor came in at the 11th hour, the way I viewed it, with the Assembly, literally at the 11th hour. I think it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
But he did it with the Assembly. He couldn't do it alone.
He did it with the Assembly. I think in the cool light of day, when the Assembly and others realized what lowering the sales tax would cost to our budget, everybody said, maybe it sounded okay at 11 o'clock at night, but not in the cool light of the day.
So for those who are not insiders and don't follow what goes on in the State House, which is the vast majority of people in the state, do you understand, Senator, an awful lot of people saying, wow, they can't figure out how to fix the potholes in the roads and the bridges that are falling apart, and they're back and forth. Christie, it's the Senate Speaker, it's the Assembly Speaker, it's the Senate President. Can you understand that frustration? Sure,
I can understand the frustration. I can understand the frustration of people who are not working now.
That's right.
Because the governor called this halt to all our construction projects. I understand the frustration of the business community, who know that if our infrastructure falls apart any more than it has already, everybody's in trouble. So I understand that frustration. We have this rule called 21 senators, 41
right.
Assembly people, and a governor. And I am hoping that very soon we will all be together in a room to come up with a solution that will give stable long-term funding to the Transportation Trust Fund and will not hurt the people who, the working people.
You're hopeful?
Yes.
Let's try this, the pension crisis. See, you're ready to get a reaction from me. The Senate Speaker, Steve Sweeney, opted.
The Senate President.
Senate President opted not to have a referendum put on the ballot, which would allow voters to determine whether the state would have a dedicated amount of money that they would put in the public employee pension fund. Did you agree with that position?
I would have liked to have seen this passed now, because it wasn't...
you mean like the voters?
To allow the voters
to
vote on it. But I understand the Senate President's objection to making sure that whatever we do with the Transportation Trust Fund does not leave us with such a hole in the budget that we're not going to be able to afford full payments. You know, the pension crisis is not the fault of any employee. Every employee, both local, county, and state, have always paid their portion of the pension contribution. In fact, as of 2010, an increased portion. It's the state, the employer, who hasn't paid their fair share.
Should the state be mandated, whether the legislators and the governor, whoever that governor is at the time, choose to do it or not? Should the state be mandated to make that payment?
Well, I think it's an obligation, and I think that past experience has shown us that the employers, the state, don't always live up to that obligation, so maybe a mandate is important.
Even if there's an argument that the fiscal realities don't dictate it, quote, the money's not there?
Well, I think that hopefully we're going to improve the economy with things like investment in infrastructure and more people working, that the money is going to be there.
Talk about the Port Authority bus terminal. It's something that you've been working on. What's the issue? What's the answer to the issue?
The issue is that we have a bus terminal in Manhattan where 115,000 people come in every morning and 115,000 people leave every evening. Talk about a third world transportation hub. It was disgusting. And I first got involved with this because I don't commute into the city, but I do take the bus on occasion. And when my kids visit, they take the bus quite regularly. So I first got involved with this when constituents started complaining about the bus terminal. And I took the bus in a couple of times myself. And some of it, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would say it was like a comedy routine. You know those little fans you have at bedside to cool you off? Well, I actually saw an exit with a little fan sitting there like that to cool off whoever was coming through. Long lines, leaking ceilings with garbage pails lined up to catch the water coming from the ceiling.
So, Senator, in the limited time we have, I want to be sensitive to this. So you said, and others said, hey,
what's going on here?
Terminal.
Well, I want
But now you're getting resistance from New York. I saw a congressman now, they're just, testifying before the Port Authority saying, all right, you know what? It's your problem, Jersey, not ours.
Well, of course, it's New York's problem. It's those people who come into the city every day to work in New York to fill their employee needs. It is those people who go to New York and spend money in the theater and in restaurants and for recreation. So, of course, this is a bi-state, tri-state problem. I reached out to Congressman Nadler's office, and I'm hoping that we will all be able to sit down and talk about the fact that this needs a bi-state conclusion. And if, in fact, the people on the west side of Manhattan don't want a new terminal moved over a few blocks, they can build, the Port Authority can rebuild right on the site where they are. But there is no reason in the world that people who go to work every day should be subjected to filthy restrooms, leaking ceilings, lack of heat in the winter, air conditioning in the summer. Now, let me say they have improved it a little bit.
Not where it needs to be.
Nowhere near where it needs to be.
And by the way, just to clarify, Senator Weinberg has been speaking about Port Authority issues for a while. And you're welcome back on Capitol Report anytime. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
That is it for this particular edition of New Jersey Capitol Report. For my colleague, Rafael Piuman, I'm Steve Adubato. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
My husband and I spent more than 30 years in the public schools. We're retired, but we like to stay involved.
Do you think he's going to learn to fly?
We're just as busy now as in our teaching days. The same goes for a lot of the retired educators we know.
Let me see you all flap your wings like you're penguins learning to fly.
Teaching is all about building relationships, and that never goes away. Because once a teacher, always a teacher. We're Ed and Miriam, and we are proud to be New Jersey educators.
Also brought to you by the Northward Center, the New Jersey State Nurses Association, and the Institute for Nurses, and by New Jersey Council of County Colleges.